I first came across this account in an old post published on Tianya in 2013. For viewers unfamiliar with the site, Tianya can be understood as an early Chinese version of Reddit. Users gathered in different discussion sections, shared personal experiences, and held long public conversations through reply threads. Many stories that later became part of Chinese internet folklore first circulated there. The post was written by an anonymous user who presented the events as genuine memories from his own family. It attracted considerable attention at the time, partly because the writer described the events in unusual detail while maintaining a calm, matter-of-fact tone. The original account contained two stories, both connected to the same place, an old building known locally as the Octagonal Tower. The first story took place during the writer's childhood, when he and several other children entered the abandoned tower to explore it, and encountered a series of events they could not explain. The second recounts another disturbing incident, reportedly experienced by the writer's grandfather at the same tower when he was still a young man. I have reorganized and adapted the original account for documentary-style narration. As with many personal experiences shared online, the events cannot be independently verified. This is the first story. The Octagonal Tower, Part 1. My hometown was a traditional village in rural Guangdong. When I was little, there was a very old building in our village. Everyone called it the Octagonal Tower. According to the villagers, the building probably dated back to the late Qing dynasty or the early Republican era. By then, it was already more than 100 years old. The roof had pointed ridges on all four sides, and the eaves curled upward. From outside, you could see 8 upturned corners. That was how it got the name Octagonal Tower. In the early years, the building had mainly been used by the village collective to store supplies and receive outside visitors. Later, after the old village collective system was dissolved, the Octagonal Tower was abandoned. But the strange thing was, after more than 100 years of wind and rain, it still stood there, solid and upright. When we were children, we heard many ghost stories about that old building. I had always been curious about it. Then one day, a group of us really did go inside, and that was the time we truly ran into something supernatural. I was still very young then, probably in 3rd grade at elementary school. One weekend afternoon, a group of us kids gathered by the old well at the entrance of the village. We played there for a while, then got bored. I no longer remember who said it first, but someone suddenly suggested, "Why don't we go explore the Octagonal Tower?" All of us agreed. Children are naturally curious. The more the adults used ghost stories about the Octagonal Tower to scare us, the more curious we became. Besides, there were many of us that day, and it was still afternoon. The sun was bright, and everyone felt much braver than usual. There were probably 7 or 8 of us in total. I cannot remember the exact number now. There were boys and girls. The oldest were in 5th or 6th grade. The youngest were only 5 or 6 and had not even started school yet. There are 2 children I need to mention here. One was the oldest boy among us. We all called him Brother Sheng. In our village, children usually called older boys that way, adding the word brother after their name. Brother Sheng was in 5th grade at the time, probably 12 or 13 years old, and he was the leader of our little gang. The other was his younger sister, Xiao Yu. Xiao Yu was only 5 or 6 years old then. She was the youngest among us. Just like that, with Brother Sheng leading the way, we set off from the old well at the village entrance and headed toward the Octagonal Tower. I still remember the road to the tower. Starting from the old well, we passed through a banana grove, then through an orchard, then crossed a patch of wild grass. Finally, after going around a strange clump of bamboo, we arrived in front of the Octagonal Tower. That bamboo was very strange. It did not grow straight upward like ordinary bamboo. Instead, It spread outward in all directions from the middle, almost like a giant mushroom lying against the ground. The bamboo covered a large area. Its branches grew sideways in every direction, extremely dense and covered with thorns. The outside was thick and tangled, but in the middle there was a small empty space, with only one thick main trunk standing there. At the time, we only thought it looked strange. We did not think much more about it. We went around that bamboo and arrived at the entrance of the Octagonal Tower. When I was little, the tower looked enormous to me. In any case, it was much bigger than our homes. Looking back now, I would guess it was over 2,000 square feet, with 3 full floors and a half level above. The main entrance was very tall and wide. Stone pillars stood on both sides of the door, and at a glance, you could tell they were solid. There were carvings on the brick walls beside the entrance too, though I did not look closely at the time, and I no longer remember what they showed. Even the top of the doorway had upturned corners. Although the building had been abandoned for many years, it still looked imposing. The wooden doors that had once sealed the entrance had already been broken apart long ago. We stood at the entrance and looked around for a little while. Then, without staying there too long, we went inside. After passing through the gate, the first thing we saw was a rectangular courtyard. The courtyard was sunken, probably designed that way for drainage. There were drains and water channels on all 4 sides, and there was no roof over it. If you looked up, you could see the sky directly above you. In theory, a place open to the sky should not have been that dark, but the first floor of the Octagonal Tower was strangely gloomy. The buildings around it enclosed the space on every side, and the main gate was built very high, blocking much of the sunlight. Not far in front of the entrance, some villagers had planted a small grove of trees, and that grove happened to stand right in front of the gate. Only at noon, when the sunlight fell straight down into the courtyard, would the first floor become a little brighter. Once the sun began to slant in the afternoon, the light was blocked by the trees outside and by the building itself. When we went in, it was probably around 4 in the afternoon. The sun had already begun leaning westward, so the first floor looked gray and dim, with a kind of heaviness I could not describe. Directly across the courtyard was the main hall. By then, it was already filled with old things villagers had stored there. On the left side of the hall, there was a dark room. There had always been a saying in the village that this dark room had once been used to lock up criminals. We went close and looked inside. All we could see was darkness, but we could hear dripping water. One drop, then another. It felt damp and cold. None of us dared go in. Next to the dark room was a bedroom. Whatever furniture had once been inside had long since been moved away, and the room was filled with old things too, mostly firewood and things like that. Behind it, there was a short hallway, a kitchen, and a toilet. That whole area was piled with junk, dirty and messy, so we only glanced around and came back out. Then we walked to the right side of the main hall. There was another bedroom on that side. This bedroom was a little strange. Inside was a rotting, collapsed wooden bed. Half of a mosquito net still hung over it, covered in dust. Brother Sheng even lifted the mosquito net and looked underneath. There was nothing inside except a pile of broken boards. Beside the bed was an equally ruined dressing cabinet. One corner of it had broken off, and the whole cabinet leaned to one side. The mirror on the dressing cabinet, however, was still intact. It was just covered in dust, so cloudy that you could barely see anything in it. One of the kids even ran over and wrote the Chinese character for kill on the mirror. A lot of little boys in the village used to have that habit, writing the word kill everywhere. There was no special reason. They simply thought it was fun. I did the same thing when I was little. Looking back, it was pretty stupid. But the more I think about it now, the stranger that bedroom seems. Many of the rooms on the first floor had been filled with things by villagers. Even the narrow toilet had stuff piled inside it. But this bedroom was clearly spacious, and yet no one had stored anything there. The only things left inside were that broken bed, the old mosquito net, the dressing cabinet, and the dusty mirror. At the time, we were not thinking that deeply. A group of children walked around the room, found nothing interesting, and left. Outside that side bedroom, there was another toilet and another small room. Both were also filled with miscellaneous junk, with nothing worth seeing. We finished exploring the first floor very quickly. Apart from the dark room, which none of us dared enter, we only walked briefly through the other rooms and found nothing special. So we decided to go up to the second floor. The stairs in the octagonal tower were wooden. Years of neglect had left them worn and rickety. When we stepped on them, they made creaking sounds. But we were all children and did not weigh much, so at the time, none of us thought it was dangerous. The first floor was quite tall. I remember the staircase turning several times before it reached the second floor. When we climbed to the landing after the first flight of stairs, there was a small window beside us. That window had originally been there to let in light, but it had long since broken, and it opened straight to the outside. That spot was not too high from the ground, maybe a little over 6 feet. At the time, none of us paid any attention to that window. Later, when we were running for our lives, that was the window we jumped out of. We carefully went up to the second floor. The second floor felt much better than the first. The first floor had been gloomy, but the second floor was noticeably brighter. When we went up, it was probably around 4:30 in the afternoon, and the sunlight had not completely dropped yet. So the second floor did not feel as frightening. There was not much junk on the floor, only some dust, bits of stone, rotten sticks, and things like that scattered around. There were many spider webs in the corners. Seeing that kind of environment, all of us relaxed a little. Soon, we looked through every room on the second floor. There were no villagers' belongings stored there, so the space felt much larger than the first floor. The layout was similar to the first floor, with a main hall in the middle, rooms on the left and right, and a long corridor outside connecting them. The difference was that on the second floor, there was also a corridor on the side facing the main entrance, connecting with the corridors on the left and right. Together, they formed a loop. In other words, on the second floor, you could walk around the inside of the octagonal tower in a circle. When children see a place like that, their playful side comes out. At first, we only looked around. Later, I do not know who started it, but we actually began playing Train on the second floor corridor. The game was simple. The person behind would put both hands on the shoulders of the person in front, and a whole line of people would follow the one at the front. Just like that, we walked around the second floor corridor several times in a row. The oppressive feeling from the first floor seemed to fade away as soon as we reached the second. Everyone became bolder and bolder. We even started to feel that the octagonal tower was not so scary after all. Later, Brother Sheng suggested, "Let's go up to the third floor. Maybe it'll be even more fun up there." So we headed toward the third floor. The third floor left an especially deep impression on me, because the environment up there did not look like it belonged in an abandoned old building at all. After we went up, we found that the third floor was empty. There was no furniture, and there were no piles of things stored by villagers. But strangely, the third floor was extremely clean. The floor was clean. The walls were clean. There were none of the messy things from the first floor, none of the broken stones, rotten sticks, or spider webs from the second floor. There was not even much dust. The floor was paved with stone slabs, laid down neatly one piece after another. At the time, we did not think much of it. We only felt that the third floor was much more comfortable than the first and second floors. The wind on the third floor was strong, and it was cool. It was clearly the middle of summer, and the sun was still shining on us. But standing there, we did not feel hot at all. Instead, it felt pleasant. Very quickly, we went wild. After walking through every room, we started playing a game on the third floor, something like red light, green light. As we played, we discovered something interesting. When we jumped on the third floor, the floor seemed to have a slight bounce to it. It was not very obvious, but you could feel it. When you jumped, the floor seemed to tremble lightly with you, giving the illusion that the whole building was swaying just a little. What did children know about things like that? We only thought it was fun. So we kept jumping, getting more and more excited. Looking back now, that was not right at all. Such an old building, with a third floor paved in stone slabs. How could the floor have that slight springiness? But at the time, none of us thought about that. When children play themselves into a frenzy, they do not notice how quickly time passes. I do not know how long we played, but by the time we realized it, the sun had already gone down. The third floor had begun to darken. I looked outside at the sky, and my heart suddenly tightened. This was bad. It was already so late. My mother was probably looking everywhere for me to come home for dinner. When I got back, I was definitely going to be beaten. So I said to Brother Sheng, "Brother Sheng, the sun's already down. Let's go. We can come back tomorrow." Brother Sheng said, "All right, let's go then. The Octagonal Tower is actually pretty fun. A place this nice, and they keep saying there are ghosts? If there really were ghosts, why didn't we see any just now? From now on, we should come here every day." Not long after he said that, the sky darkened a little more. In the countryside, once the sun goes down, night falls very quickly. We walked toward the stairs leading down to the second floor. But as soon as we reached the stairwell, all of us began to regret it. Why was the staircase so dark? When we had come up, it had still been fine. But now, looking down, the stairs seemed to have suddenly turned into a black tunnel. The last glow of sunset had been blocked outside. Inside the stairwell was complete darkness. Only the small window at the turn of the stairs let in a faint trace of light. The whole stairwell looked gloomy and frightening. Without realizing it, all of us stopped walking. At that moment, Xiao Yu said quietly from behind us, "Brother, I'm scared." Brother Sheng was nervous too, but he was the oldest among us, so he forced himself to stay calm and said, "Don't be scared, Xiao Yu. We'll go down together. Just stay close to me." So Brother Sheng walked at the front. Xiao Yu followed right behind him. I walked behind Xiao Yu, and the other children followed behind me. Just like that, we went down the stairs. With the little bit of light coming in through the window at the stair landing, we made it down to the second floor. But as soon as we reached the second floor, I felt that something was wrong. The second floor was darker than the third, and the temperature had dropped a lot. That cold was not ordinary coolness. It was the kind of cold that seemed to seep right through your skin all at once. Goosebumps rose on my arms. That was not normal. It was summer, and just a moment earlier, on the third floor, we had only felt the wind was cool and comfortable. We had not felt cold at all. I do not know who whispered, "It's so cold." I could not help shivering too. I was just about to follow Brother Sheng downstairs when one of the children suddenly pointed toward the corridor across from us. His voice had changed. "Look over there. What is that?" I turned my head instinctively. In that instant, my whole body froze. I saw, in the corridor by the kitchen doorway on the left side of the second floor, a pale, human-shaped figure standing there. It was draped in white. Above it was a dark clump of something, like hair, and it was very long. Because the light was too dim, I did not have time to see exactly what it looked like. A second later, one of the kids screamed, "Ghost! There's a ghost!" That was all it took. Everyone scrambled toward the stairs. Screams, crying, shouting, footsteps. The whole octagonal tower fell into chaos at once. Thud, thud, thud. A mass of children rushed down the wooden stairs, and the entire staircase seemed to shake. Under our feet, it kept creaking and groaning. At that point, who cared whether the stairs might collapse? Everyone ran downward as if they had gone mad, screaming as they ran. In the chaos, I felt as if someone fell, but no one dared turn back to look. We rushed down 2 flights of stairs. Only the last flight remained before we would reach the first floor. But suddenly, the child running at the very front let out an "Ah!" and backed up several steps, not daring to go any farther down. The children behind were still pushing downward. All at once, everyone got jammed together at the turn of the stairs. The children behind shouted anxiously, "Go! Go!" The ones in front shouted back, "We can't go down. There's something down there." Someone else shouted, "There's something on the first floor." Squeezed in the middle, I could not see a thing. I only felt the crush of bodies, those in front pushing back, those behind shoving forward. It was complete pandemonium. At that moment, Brother Sheng suddenly pointed at the small window beside us and shouted, "Jump out! Quick! Jump out through the window!" By then, no one cared about anything else. One by one, the children began jumping out through the window. Luckily, by that time, we were already close to the first floor, and the window was only a little over 6 feet from the ground. Outside, the grass had grown thick, so it helped cushion the fall a little. I do not know which number I was when I jumped. In any case, by the time I climbed up from the grass, several other children were already standing around me. Everyone was shaking with fear. Our legs were so weak we could barely stand. 2 of the younger children were crying outright, sitting on the ground and unable to get up. But something was strange. As soon as we came out of the building, it became warm again. The cold from the second floor seemed to vanish all at once. Outside was still the heat of a summer evening, even a little muggy. Someone, still gasping, asked the child who had been running at the front, "What did you see just now?" That child's face was pale, and he could barely speak properly. I couldn't see clearly. It looked like a lot of people. A lot of dark heads, swaying there at the bottom of the stairs on the first floor. Hearing that made us even more frightened. Just then, Brother Sheng suddenly shouted, "Where's Xiao Yu? Where is Xiao Yu?" Only then did we realize. Xiao Yu was missing. Someone looked up and immediately pointed at the window. "Xiao Yu's there!" We all raised our heads and looked. Xiao Yu was still standing by that window. Maybe she thought it was too high and did not dare jump. A 5- or 6-year-old girl stood at the edge of that black window, crying loudly in panic. As she cried, she shouted, "Brother, wait for me! Brother, I don't dare jump!" Brother Sheng was so anxious that he stamped his feet below and kept waving at her. "Xiao Yu, jump! Hurry and jump down! I'll catch you!" Xiao Yu cried and shook her head. "Brother, I don't dare! I don't dare!" Just then, Xiao Yu suddenly turned her head and looked into the stairwell behind her. I do not know what she saw. In the next second, she screamed and turned around, running back upstairs. From below, we heard her footsteps pounding upward. Thud, thud, thud. Then several screams came from upstairs. After that, there was no sound. "Xiao Yu!" Brother Sheng went completely frantic. Without thinking about anything, he turned and rushed toward the main entrance of the octagonal tower. By the time we realized what was happening and tried to stop him, he had already charged inside. Very quickly, Brother Sheng's figure disappeared into the darkness on the first floor. The rest of us children stood outside the entrance of the octagonal tower, with no idea what to do. Of course we were afraid. Looking into the building, everything inside was terrifyingly dark. especially in the direction of the stairs. We could barely see anything. We had just escaped from inside. Who among us still had the courage to go back in? But Xiao Yu was still inside, and Brother Sheng had rushed in too. We were so anxious that we kept turning in circles, but none of us dared take a step forward. We were too young then. For a while, it did not even occur to us to run back to the village and call the adults. We only stood at the entrance and shouted, "Brother Sheng! Xiao Yu!" There was no reply from inside the building. We could only hear running footsteps from within, and Brother Sheng calling again and again, "Xiao Yu! Xiao Yu! Where are you?" After a short while, the sound seemed to come from the second floor. It felt like Brother Sheng was searching room after room on the second floor. He really was brave. If it had been any one of us, we probably would not even have dared enter the first floor. But at that moment, all he cared about was finding his little sister. He had no room left to be afraid. But from the sound of it, he did not find Xiao Yu on the second floor. After a while, we heard footsteps going upstairs. It seemed Brother Sheng had gone to the third floor. All of us stood at the entrance, not even daring to breathe loudly. But strangely, it seemed he did not find her on the third floor either. After another while, more footsteps came from inside the building. This time, the sound seemed even higher. At that moment, I felt something was wrong. Because we had just spent such a long time playing on the third floor. We thought we had looked through every room, and we had not found any stairs leading up to the roof. In the old ghost stories the villagers told about the Octagonal Tower, they did say there was a rooftop level, and that the area up there had once been used as a granary. But when we were on the third floor earlier, we clearly did not see any stairs. At the time, we thought those stories were just nonsense the villagers had made up, and we did not take them seriously. Looking back now, it makes my heart go cold. Such a large building, how could there be no way up to the roof? Had we really missed something on the third floor earlier? Or had that staircase not been there at the beginning at all? After a little longer, we faintly heard Brother Sheng's voice. It was muffled, as if it were coming down from a very high place. He was shouting, "Xiao Yu, what are you doing? Xiao Yu, wake up! Xiao Yu, don't scare me!" Hearing that, our scalps went numb. Not long after, footsteps came down the stairs inside the building. My heart was almost jumping into my throat. Finally, we saw a figure slowly emerge from the darkness. It was Brother Sheng. He was carrying Xiao Yu on his back. But Xiao Yu looked very wrong. She was draped over Brother Sheng's back, but her upper body was rigid. Her face was blank, her eyes completely vacant. The strangest thing was her right hand. Her right hand was clenched into a fist, raised slightly, and then pulled downward. She would pause, then raise it again, then pull downward again, once, again, as if she were truly gripping some invisible cord in her hand. All the while, she kept murmuring under her breath, "Pull the cord, pull the cord, pull the cord, pull the cord." In the old days, some rural lights did not use wall switches. Instead, they used a pull cord hanging from the ceiling. To turn the light on, you pulled it once. To turn it off, you pulled it again. What Xiao Yu was doing at that moment was exactly that motion. Only there was clearly nothing in her hand. A few of us rushed over and gathered around them. I asked Brother Sheng, "What happened to Xiao Yu?" Brother Sheng's face looked awful too. It was obvious he had been badly frightened. He said, "How would I know? "Stop asking. Go. Hurry, go!" None of us dared stay any longer. We quickly followed them and ran away from the tower. We ran a long distance, all the way to an open patch of ground outside. Brother Sheng probably could not carry her anymore, so he finally put Xiao Yu down. Then he collapsed onto the ground himself, gasping for breath. But Xiao Yu stood there on the ground, still exactly the same. Her right hand clenched into a fist, raised up, then pulled down. Raised up, pulled down. And under her breath, she kept repeating, "Pull the cord, pull the cord, pull the cord, pull the cord." Everyone was terrified. One of the children walked over, shook Xiao Yu, and lightly patted her face. "Xiao Yu, wake up! Xiao Yu, what's wrong?" But Xiao Yu did not react at all. Someone whispered, "Could Xiao Yu have been scared out of her mind?" Someone else said, "Should we slap her? I heard that when someone gets frightened like this, hitting them can wake them up." All of us looked at Brother Sheng. Brother Sheng did not know what else to do either. He hesitated for a moment, then finally clenched his teeth and said, "Then try it." After saying that, he raised his hand and slapped Xiao Yu across the face. A sharp smack. Xiao Yu was knocked straight to the ground. In the next second, she burst into tears with a loud wail. Only then did we all breathe out in relief. Although that slap looked genuinely painful, at least Xiao Yu finally seemed to have woken up. Everyone hurried to help her up and comforted her for a long while before she slowly calmed down. Once she was not as frightened, we could not help asking her, "What did you see just now?" Xiao Yu cried as she spoke. "All of you jumped down. I didn't dare jump. Then I heard sounds from the stairs behind me. When I turned around, I saw a lot of shadows on the stairs, walking upward. I was scared, so I ran upstairs. The second floor was too dark. I didn't dare stop, so I ran to the third floor. When I got to the third floor, I didn't know where to hide. Then I heard someone upstairs calling me. I saw a staircase beside me, so I went up. After that, I felt very sleepy. Then I fell asleep. When I woke up, my brother had hit me." When she said that, she started crying again, this time from feeling wronged. "My face hurts." After hearing that, none of us knew what to say. Someone upstairs had called her? Who was calling her? At that time, Brother Sheng had clearly still been downstairs. Then Brother Sheng also told us what he had seen after going back inside. He said, "At the time, I didn't think about anything. I only wanted to find Xiao Yu quickly. I went to the second floor first. I searched every room, but I didn't find her. Then I went up to the third floor. I searched the third floor too, but still didn't find her. Later, on the right side of the third floor, near the kitchen area, I faintly heard Xiao Yu's voice. When I turned my head, I saw a staircase beside me. I don't know why I didn't see that staircase before. I just followed it up. After I went up, I saw Xiao Yu standing in front of a doorway. She was facing a pitch-black room, and her hand kept moving like this, pulling again and again, while she said, "Pull the cord." No matter how I called her, she wouldn't wake up. I had no choice but to carry her down. At this point, Brother Sheng paused. His face turned even paler. In a low voice, he said, "Also, when I carried her down to the first floor, I felt something kick me hard from behind. Not a bump, a real kick. It scared me to death." After saying that, he could not help cursing. "I'm never going to the Octagonal Tower again." No one argued with him. After that day, our group of children was truly scared out of our wits. After resting for a while, none of us dared stay there any longer. We could only go back to our own homes. By the time I got home, the sky was completely dark. My mother had been looking for me for half the day and was already frantic with worry. As soon as I walked through the door, she beat me hard. I cried while eating dinner. After I finished eating, the more I thought about what had happened, the more frightened I became. So I told my father what we had run into inside the Octagonal Tower that day. I had hoped he would offer a few words of comfort. Instead, he just beat me again. As he hit me, he scolded, "I told you not to go to the Octagonal Tower, and you still dared to go. I told you not to disobey. Are you going again?" From that day on, I never dared enter the Octagonal Tower again. Later, even when I passed nearby, I only looked at it from far away or circled around outside. I never dared step inside again. Looking back now, there are still many things about that experience that I cannot understand. Why was the third floor so unnaturally clean? Why, when we were on the third floor at first, did we clearly not see any staircase leading up to the roof, while later both Xiao Yu and Brother Sheng saw one? Why did the second floor suddenly become so cold when we were going downstairs? What exactly was that pale figure by the kitchen doorway on the current floor? And why did Xiao Yu keep making that motion, pulling at an invisible cord? I have never had answers to those questions. Not until later, when my grandfather told me another story about the Octagonal Tower. He said that what happened to us when we were children might not even have been the strangest thing about that place. The thing that truly made people of his generation fear the Octagonal Tower was something that had happened many years earlier, in the granary on the roof.